Hello, people of the internet, and by people I mean about 20 people. Uh, Today I am going to be ranking all studio albums by American experimental rock band Swans, formed by my personal favorite American cowboy heartthrob, Michael Gira. I had no idea it was pronounced Gira. I always said Gira until I watched the Where Does a Body End documentary a couple days ago, and that shit tripped me out, dude. Um, I've been a fan of the band for straight up probably only since like February, but since then I've heard every live album, every studio album I've ever could by the band. I absolutely adore their sound, the whole, you know, the maximalism and just the amazing instrumentation and lyricisms, all of it just comes together to form easily one of the greatest bands I've ever heard in my entire life. And fuck, man, it's kind of a miracle because it really is like everything I could ever want in music personally. They have 17 studio albums. None of them are bad. I'm also going to be including Drainland because it's a Swans album, everything but name. Every Swans member from the time plays on it. He doesn't even write all of the songs, Gerard, that is. So, 18 albums. I'm not going to be talking about the live albums just for the sake of the list because there's so many. But I will talk about like some of my favorite ones as they come up, naturally speaking. So yeah, pretty short, simple, sweet. I have no idea how to do introductions, and I will begin this ranking with number 18. Mind you, again, none of these are bad. Also, say hi to George Harrison in the background. Alright, so in number 18, I have Holy Money. Now, I'll go ahead and say straight away, this is not a bad album, but it is the worst, and the main reason is really quite simple. It's minimalist. It's minimal. It feels very reserved and just refined compared to most of the other Swans albums. Most Swans albums, they're big, they're jammy, they're sludgy, they're noisy. This one and its companion album, which came out before this, Greed, just have a certain. There's just minimal. I mean, there's just both of them. They're only about 30 minutes long, which is so short for a Swans album. And I just think these have like the weakest unique sound of all of the major Swans albums. It's has a certain very slow, morose, like sort of dark wave-esque aesthetic to it. Very dreary and just kind of drab and just slow and cold, which I don't mind. Usually I love that kind of music, but I don't know. I guess it's just the lack of variety on this project and the previous one, which I'll talk about in a little bit from now because I do believe it to be quite superior. And speaking of that, I've always found it interesting that this album is generally considered the superior of the two, which I don't understand at all, I won't lie. I think that this project is a significant downgrade from Greed. Also, another thing, I won't lie, is that a lot of the songs on here were already on Greed. And by a lot, I mean two. But that's still, for an album this short, that's kind of a big deal. And I don't know, it's just like, they're not even like unique, they're just the same song. Fool and Money is Flesh, which I also won't lie are the two best songs on here. I don't know, I guess it's just, I respect them more than I actually like them, is a good way to put it. If you ask me, they're incredibly important transitional projects. So the first ones to have Jarbo on them, the first ones to, and thus the first ones to incorporate piano and slower compositions. And in general, it definitely feels like Mr. Jarrah, it definitely feels like he's honing in on his craft and he's learning how to properly sing and not just scream at the microphone. So I respect these a lot more than I like them. And even if I include the A Screw EP on this to extend it, it's just kind of more of the same. And I honestly, if anything, I like it less. So maybe it also doesn't help that both of the times I went through the discography, I listened to this and Greed back to back. So they're so similar that by the time you reach the end of this album, you just want it to be done. But still, it's not bad. It's not bad. I do really like the sound. Fool is an amazing song. So is Another You and You Need Me. And I really do like the dark, industrial, slow sound of this. Also, this album heavily influenced Tool, apparently, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it's not bad. Not bad, but it's just the least interesting, I think, of all of their 18 major studio albums. And with that, we'll move on to number 17. Yeah, at number 17, I have Cop, and I don't know how controversial of an opinion this is, but I do find this album to be a bit uninspired. It has a similar problem to the previous album where it's very samey, and it just kind of feels like they're still just kind of trying to figure out what they want to be. It's only 40 minutes, but sure as hell feels longer than that. And compared to this one's companion album, not Greed, Filth, um, it's a lot slower and sludgier, and you can definitely feel the transition from Filth to Children of God, which I do think is whenever they fully figured out their sound. And honestly, I don't know. I guess that's just the whole thing with Filth is that it's intense, it's very, very energetic, it's loud, it's angry. So to just kind of take that, the same sludginess and the same general production, and just stretch it out, I don't know. It just doesn't work that much for me. It really just some of the weakest vocal performances from Jirah, and also just some of the least inspired songwriting comes up on this thing. I would say in general, the side A is far superior to side B. Half-Life, Why Hide, and Clay and Man are probably the highlights. It's still not bad. It's sludgy, it's noisy, it's angry, it's still like it's a Swans project. It's very fun, but I kind of have to exaggerate my negativity to justify why it's second to last, you know? I can't just say, oh, it's great, and then move on. Also, the Young God EP, if you include that, is it any better? No, it's not. I don't really like the Young God EP. I think that it's just more of the same, but it's even longer, so, you know. Similar with the Screw EP with Holy Money. So, yeah, all right. Number 17, let's go. Okay, so Drainland. This is an interesting one. It came out in 95 and was pretty much advertised as like a companion album to The Great Annihilator. And frankly, that's what this is. It's a companion album to The Great Annihilator. It's the same. It has generally the same like sort of ethereal wave-esque kind of grandiose, almost kind of chamberish sound. It definitely sounds like it was recorded in a church at points, and it has the same, you know, sort of. It has a lot of chamber folk influences, but you can definitely hear some of the more industrial sounds, which will end up on Soundtracks for the Blind coming up. But I won't lie, this is pretty much just a B-sides compilation to me. By far the highlight is undoubtedly Blind, which even then is technically a White Light song that was just kind of shoehorned on here. And by the way, why the fuck wasn't Blind originally on White Light? I'd say the highlight beyond that is undoubtedly Where Does Your Body Begin? Beautiful song. I think it's probably top 20 in all of Swans. The first song, You See Through Me, with the very depressing sort of field recording, I guess you'd call it, between Michael Jirah and Jarbo arguing, is definitely makes for a very depressing experience, and that song in general does have some very nice soundscapes. In general, I'd say this song lacks a lot of the songwriting that most Swans albums have, but it makes up for it with a lot of great atmosphere and production. Your Naked Body and Fan Letter definitely come to mind when it comes to that. And in general, I would say that this album, even if it was credited Swans, would probably still be pretty forgettable. Also, one more thing. The version of I See Them All Lined Up on this album is kind of fucking hilarious. It's not good. It's so obnoxious. That's one of the view thing. I won't lie. Some of the songs, especially near the end of this album, are kind of forgettable, and there's better versions of them existing elsewhere. But man, I See Them All Lined Up. I will never forget that song every time I listen to it. It's just that version is so funny. With the janky ass, like, that was really bad, I'm sorry. But yeah, it's not a bad album. It has great atmosphere. It definitely fits the vibe of the cover. It's sort of like a dark, mossy, stormy, rainy, like, kind of sounds like you're in like an abandoned cabin out in the middle of the woods. I think is a good way to describe it. You can tell I improv these. But yeah, it's not bad. Again, there's better albums, and this album in particular has better songs on other live albums and other studio albums. All right, 15, Greed. I don't have too much to say on this because I pretty much said everything I wanted to say with Holy Money. The only difference is that This one came first, so it's like I'm not as tired of the sound yet. And also, I just think the songs are full, amazing. I love that dark gothic piano that starts off the track, and also Michael Dry. You can really feel him starting to hone in his vocals on there. I don't really have that much to say. I mean, it's just holy money, but I like the songs more. They're just better sounding. I mean, also, Time is Money, Bastard, is a better EP than A Screw, if I include that, which I will, because, I mean, that's how it is on streaming services, so that's how I listen to it. I mean, yeah, there isn't really that much to say. I did forget to mention this with the Holy Money section. The live album, Public Castration is a Good Idea, is pretty much these two albums, but maximalized and fully realized to their greatest potential. So honestly, if you want to listen to these albums, just listen to Public Castration, because it really is just a superior version of these albums. That's all I really have to say, alright? Number 14. Alright, number 14, we have pretty easily the most controversial record Swans ever made with The Burning World. Came out in 89, and I believe it's their only major label release. And you can definitely tell this album is far more hi-fi, far more mainstream and melodic sounding. There's a lot of country and chamber folk influences on here. And a lot of people hate it. A lot of people think it's very boring. A lot of people think it's very... I've heard a lot of people say it's pretty cheesy. What? And Michael Jura says that too. I don't think that. I kind of honestly do genuinely dislike that label. I think this album is beautiful and has some absolutely phenomenal songwriting on it. The opener, The River That Runs with Love Won't Run Dry, that's a tongue twister. I love that song. It is so fun. It is so catchy. Also, obviously, easily the most famous song off of this is Goddamn the Sun. Beautiful, very depressing folk anthem there. It kind of sounds like, almost like proto-Elliott Smith, you know what I mean? Some like Nick Drake influences on here. In general, you definitely have to like, like this kind of folk music. It's not really Swans. Nothing about this album sounds like Swans. And you definitely have to like some more like folk music to enjoy this. So I get why a lot of people don't. And at times I will admit that the absurd amount of backing musicians can kind of get in the way, and at times Michael Jura does sound really bored with this project, especially around the middle, I would say. But overall, I still think it's a great project. I'm still very happy it exists, and it definitely paved the way for more more melodic influences on later albums. Highlights, again, The River, the cover Can't Find My Way Home, Saved, and Goddamn the Sun definitely come to mind. Also, I really wish that the Level Tears Apart cover was on this, because I love it. I love every second of it. I think it's better than the original. Okay, so this is probably a very controversial opinion. Filth this low, because I know this is pretty definitely one of their more famous albums. And also, it's my profile picture right now. So you may be thinking, what? No, you're probably not, because there's nobody watching this. I just don't really think that 80s Swans were at the best. I think most people definitely agree that it's their weakest decade. And honestly, yeah, I do think it's their weakest decade. Though, this is where we get to the amazing albums. I think this album is phenomenal. It's very short, very sweet. Pretty much the only Swans album that gets that title. And it's just 9 tracks of just pure vitriol and hatred and anger and just madness, really. And it definitely blends together, but I don't mind that. I do think that, like, if you're just pissed or you just want to you just want to, just let out some anger, man, I am mumbling. It works really well as a vent piece, I would describe it. Highlights, Big Strong Boss, and Blackout are definitely the best songs. Though, I just will admit, the abrupt cutoff on Big Strong Boss definitely pisses me off. Obviously, there's also Thank You and Gang, which I think are very strong too. But really, this album is very consistent with its sound. It's pure New York no-wave sledge metal, phenomenal, really. I mean, I don't visit it that often because you really do got to be in the right mood for it, and I still prefer the more melodic, atmospheric, drawn out Swan sound, clearly. But this is still a great album. It's just not really what I would go to for Swans. Also, I genuinely think that the sound on their debut EP is better. It has a lot more of like a new wave dance punk influence, and I just think it's a lot tighter and more cohesive sounding for only being like 5 tracks. And really, I honestly do wish that they made a whole album like that because I like that sound a lot more than the sludge metal one here. Though this is still great, don't get me wrong. All right, let's keep going. Number 12. Okay, my father will guide me up to a rope. My father will guide me up a rope to the sky is a very peculiar album in their discography. I mean, it's their first album following their reunion in the late 2000s, and it's so every other album that they've released post reuniting is big, grand, these 2-hour long, maximalist, grandiose epics. There's at least one song in every single one that's 20 to 30 minutes long. And then there's this one, the first album, that's pretty, like, I wouldn't say mainstream, obviously, it's Swans, but this album has a lot more of, like, a traditional prog rock and folk rock sound to it. Like, Reeling the Liars In is just straight up just some folk shit. Like, this is still a great album. I love, it has a very nocturnal, countryside vibe to it. It definitely feels very elegant with its sound. It's probably the prettiest Swans album, if I had to be totally honest, or at least close with White Light. No Words, No Thoughts is definitely the most popular song off of this, and it's definitely the best. Very fun, very entertaining. Probably the most experimental song on here too. If I'm not mistaken, there's some like horn stuff going on in there that's really fun. I think it's this song. There's also Inside Madeline, Eden Prison, and You Fucking People Make Me Sick. Amazing title. Hell yeah, Jura. They're all very fun. Yeah, the main thing is that it's just a short album, and sometimes it's just a lot of the stuff going on in here is done better on their later and previous albums. Like a lot of the stuff on here, White Light, Great Annihilator, The Seer, I think all have these sounds. Leaving Meaning just does a lot of the more like acoustic-based chamber sound better. I've said chamber so many times in this video. Sorry, this is improvised. I hate scripts. But yeah, still a great album. Very fun. No Words, No Thoughts, and You Fucking People, and Inside Madeline, I definitely revisit a lot. It's just, it's short, and there's just better albums out there by Swans. So yeah, number 12. Okay, so I already know that putting Children of God this low is probably more controversial than putting Filth as low as I did. And also, it's the only 80s album left, which means that I've officially cleared every single 80s album and not a single one cracked the top 10. I'm sorry. I just genuinely do believe this to be their weakest outing, their weakest decade. Though, I still love this album. It's the most 80s sounding, in my opinion. It definitely sounds a lot, honestly, like something by the Chameleons or, like, early The Cure. Even, like, Sushi and the Banshees. Bauhaus, sorry. There's a certain just dark gothicness that covers this album in a way most of the other ones don't. And there's a lot of melody going on here, too. I would say this is definitely the album where Jara and Jarbo refine and figure out how they're going to sing, how they're going to write, how they're going to sequence their music. This is where they figured it out. Immediately with the first track, New Mind, it is a pure, unadulterated Swans track. It's beautiful. I love it. There's a very good balance between heaviness and atmosphere on this project that I think something like Drainland and The Burning World does not accomplish, and Filth and Holy Money on the other spectrum. Best song on here is definitely Blackmail. Amazing fucking song. It genuinely brings a tear to my eye every time I hear it. Other highlights, Real Love is definitely a very somber, morose track. Sex God Sex is a great song. Like a Drug, Sha La La La, amazing song, and You're Not Real Girl are all highlights. I would say my main complaint with this album is it's very repetitive, and I know I'm talking about Swans, repetition, but I don't know, it's a different kind of repetition where it almost feels like some of these songs just go on for way longer than they need to, as opposed to intentionally being that repetitive. Yeah, I don't know, every single song in here is like 5 to 7 minutes, and I don't know, I just think that a lot of these songs would do better as 3 to 4 minute tracks. But still, I mean, it's very consistent, and that's something that's definitely very samey, but most Swans albums have a tendency of having not great diversity when it comes to, like, the tracks within the album. Except for, the ones at the very top, but we'll get to those in a little bit. Still, great album. I love the atmosphere. This definitely feels like where Swans figured out their sound. And I won't lie, that probably pushed it up a couple slots for me. Just how much you can respect this album for being where they figured out what they wanted to do. I just think that some of these songs are pretty forgettable and they go on for a bit too long. But still, great album. Children of God. Also, probably the most religious, anti-religious, and the most anti-religious, religious album of all time. You have that reward, Mr. Jarrah. You're welcome. Okay, so cracking our top 10, I have Love of Life, which is probably the most neglected and forgotten album in their entire discography. I really don't understand. I mean, I kind of understand why people forget about this album. White Light from the Mouth of Infinity, this companion album came out a year prior, and definitely was by far the best album up to that point, and really is an amazing album. So, its follow-up being a slightly worse version with the exact same sound, I do understand why maybe people wouldn't enjoy this one as much, or remember it as much. However, I still think it's very underrated. It's beautiful. This is probably their most euphoric sounding album. And over its 17 tracks, which by the way, none of them are longer than 6 minutes, which is great, because it's pretty much my main complaint with Children of God is gone. This album, man, it's just so beautiful. It's a bit samey, which is why it's lower. I just don't think it's quite as memorable as White Light, but there's still definitely a lot of amazing songs in here. The title track, Her, Amnesia, and God Loves America definitely come to mind in my little notes on the screen I'm looking at here sometimes as my highlights. Also, I do like the little, 3-dot parentheses interludes that dot this album all over the place. I don't know, there's just something about them that are kind of just endearing to me. Like, they just expand this, they expand the scope of this album, Unfortunately, this album does not have a blind on it, which makes it just nowhere near as memorable as White Light from the Mouth of Infinity, but I still do wish that people would talk about this one more. So yeah, that's Love of Life, 92. Moving on to number 9. Okay, so we've officially reached the first of the big albums, as I like to call them. The Seer, To Be Kind, The Glowing Man, Leaving Meaning, The Beggar, and Birthing are the 6 big ones, if you could call it that. They're like 2-hour-long epics. They're very grand, very repetitive. Every song is like 10 minutes long. However, I won't lie, I think a lot of people have said this before me. It's kind of like there's 2 trilogies. The first 3 are the epics. They're like, they all have their own unique sound, but they all kind of work with one another. Phenomenal, absolute highlights in their discography. Then there's the second trilogy, which is Leaving Meaning, The Beggar, and Birthing, which is like the Timu version of the first trilogy. And I mean that in the most respectful way possible, but these are just an infinitely worse version of the other trilogy. Like, it's the same thing, but just the production sounds worse, the songwriting isn't as memorable, the songs are shorter and, less notable, and they're a little bit less... these albums kind of lack their own unique identity, is a good way to put it, unfortunately, if I have to be honest. However, I fucking love the big, long, repetitive, grand Swans albums. So even if I can admit that this album is pretty uninspired sounding at times, I don't give a fuck, because I love the sound. It makes me fucking explode every time I listen to it. I love these long-ass tracks, okay? This album is honestly maybe the most... I've mentioned folk quite a bit, like folk influences, but this is probably the one that reaches the closest to being like a folk project. Annaline, the second track, could be in a fucking Disney movie, okay? In general, I would say this is probably the most approachable of all of their longer projects. Though, I mean, obviously it's still Swans. The Hanging Man, phenomenal. Genuinely one of the best Swan songs ever. Michael Girard's vocals on it are phenomenal. I love that song. There's also Sunfucker, which is amazing. And The Nub. And obviously the highlight, It's Coming, It's Real. I just say the main problem with this album is that while it has very high highs, it's pretty... not want to say low lows, but very forgettable lows. Like a lot of songs, What Is This, and Some New Things, and the title track, to be honest, are just really meandering, and I just don't really care about them, to be perfectly frank. Also, I will say of all of their longer albums, even though this one's by far the shortest, this one definitely feels the longest to listen to all the way through multiple times. I would just say stick with The Hanging Man and the other highlights I mentioned, because they're by far the best. Also, this album, like all of the albums in the new trilogy, are way fucking better live, dude. The version of The Hanging Man that is on and Leaving Meaning that are on the live albums, way better. Way fucking better. But yeah, that is it for the Leaving Meaning. Also, this is probably the worst Swans album cover, I won't lie. It's just text over a background. I'm sorry. So yeah, Leaving Meaning. That's number 9. Still a great album. Again, I kind of have to exaggerate my negativity in order to have something new to say with each one of these projects. I still listen to this a lot. I still love it. I still want it on vinyl. And yeah, we're moving on to number 8. Alright, I'm going to keep this section pretty brief because I already talked about the Leaving Meaning, and this is the second album in this trilogy, The Beggar. Their second longest album, and probably... I forgot what I was going to say. I'll just talk about the songs. This album is pretty much just Leaving Meaning, but there's a little bit more originality going on in here. Paradise Is Mine is very fun. Los Angeles, City of Death. I know a lot of people were pretty mixed on it when it first came out, I remember. But I still think that's a very fun track. The title track is really fun. Michael Is Done is so fucking funny. I don't really know what the idea is behind that song, but just the idea of Michael singing as himself about being done. Like, if you read the lyrics, it makes me laugh every time. Also, Why Can't I Have What I Want Anytime That I Want is a very entertaining track. Beautiful fucking song name. And I will say it. I know it's a pretty controversial song, but The Beggar Lover 3, I think it's phenomenal. I've seen a lot of people complain that it doesn't justify its length, and that it's just kind of a rehashed sound collage of existing songs off of this album. But I don't know, I just think it works really well. It has kind of a Revolution 9 vibe going on, but stretched out, deservedly so. Revolution 9 should be 30 minutes long. I think it's the highlight on here, honestly. Also, I will say, though, some of the songs I didn't mention are still meandering, still very samey. And in general, this album... it has a good sound. It's a very bleak sounding album, I would say. But it is still very samey, and a lot of these tracks lack originality. Even then, again, The Beggar Lover is kind of just a sound collage of of songs that were on the first disc of this album. Also, this album's way better live. The versions of these songs on Live Rope, I think is the one that has these songs. Yeah, it's that one. Way fucking better, dude. So yeah, that's a very great album. The highlights are very strong, but again, like Leaving Meaning, the songs that I didn't mention are fine, but kind of forgettable. And it's a bit samey, a bit meandering, and also sometimes I do think the production's kind of flat. Have to exaggerate my negativity. I love this album. It's still like a 9 out of 10. All of these albums are 9 out of 10s. Alright, moving on to number 7. Okay, so White Light from the Mouth of Infinity, 1991, and the first album in the duology with Love of Life. This is Swans at their most ethereal and their most beautiful. I definitely said that already in this video. I'm sorry. It's 12, unfortunately not 13 tracks that are all very catchy, very memorable, and unlike with Children of God, all justify their 6-minute length. I fucking love this album, okay? It is so fucking beautiful. Every second, every beautiful synth pad that gets played, every beautiful guitar lick, it's amazing. I love just how it's a very reverberated record, and fuck, is it just so beautiful. Better Than You, phenomenal. Power and Sacrifice, phenomenal. You Know Nothing. I could just say every single song. I guess I could say the highlights. Why Are We Alive is a very depressing song, but in a very beautiful Swans way. Love Will Save You is phenomenal. Miracle of Love, phenomenal. I already mentioned the first 2 songs. Will We Survive, great. This album, honestly, I was honestly pretty amazed when I first discovered that Jarbo actually doesn't write a single song on here, which is very peculiar to me because this album is super jarboed out in terms of sound. But yeah, no, I think this album is phenomenal, and it definitely gets all of the fame and love that it very rightfully deserves. That being said, if you ever listen to this album, put your headphone volume down for a little bit on that intro, because after the little baby thing, that explosion, man, it's so loud. That being said, the highlight is Blind, which, for whatever fucking reason, didn't make it onto the original track list. Devastating, which is why I mentioned it on Drainland. But still, if you include Blind on this, which is easily like one of the best songs of all time ever, it's the highlight, and it would probably push this up 2 places. And I did listen to this with Blind, because it's the version on streaming, but it's still kind of awkward whether you include it or not with this album. That being said, I still used the song. So, the newest studio album by these guys, 2025's Birthing. I have seen, generally this is the most liked of the 3 new trilogy, and obviously it's my favorite. Though I have still definitely seen some controversy with this project, mainly with its production, is the thing that I've seen a lot of people say sucks, and I don't get it. It's very reverberated. It kind of sounds like it was played in a church, and I think it works incredibly well for the sort of pseudo-spiritual, ominous, ritualistic sound that's on this album. I think it returns to a lot of the gothic influences that reigned over a lot of their 90s sound, and I really like that. And it definitely has almost kind of like a wall of sound Phil Spector thing going on, where a lot of the very heavily reverberated instruments are all kind of playing at once, and it creates a wall of sound. I think it works really well with these, particularly with these tracks. And yes, I absolutely love the first 3 songs. It's so consistent, man. The Healers, I Am a Tower, and Birthing are all so fucking fun. I know the end of I Am a Tower is just Heroes. Michael Gira literally said that was intentional. It's supposed to be an homage. Y'all can shut the fuck up about that. I will admit, though, the second disc kind of wanes a little bit. Red Yellow is fun, but I've always thought it kind of sounds like something you'd hear out of, like, Nightmare Before Christmas. When I first listened to this album, when it first came out, man, well, not when it first came out, I was kind of blown away by how, like, much it sounded like a Halloween song. Also, Guardian Spirit and Rope Away. I know Rope Away is considered the best song on here. They're just ambient tracks. I mean, I like ambient music, but I don't know if it's really what I would go for. It's not. I prefer more whenever things are more energetic. I won't lie. And The Merge is probably the most avant-garde track in Swans' entire discography. That opening shit sounds like something straight out of a Machine Girl record, dude. It's so funny. But I just think overall it's just a very consistent album, and it has an identity, and each song sounds unique within the contents of the album, which is something that The Beggar and Leaving Meaning kind of struggle with, so I really appreciate that. Also, again, the versions of the songs that are on Live Rope are way fucking better. I am so happy they put that on streaming so that you don't have to go onto the Internet Archive to find it. One thing I will say, though, this album cover sucks ass. You've already done album cover with circle in the middle of it, Jarrah. Alright, the Big Five, the 10 out of 10s, the perfect albums. Starting off with 1995's The Great Annihilator. This album effectively takes everything that worked on Greed, Children of God, The Burning World, and White Light. Infuses it together to create a shorter masterpiece. Alright, this album is very diverse in its sound. It ranges from the heavy, sludgy metal days all the way to the beautiful chamber folk. I love all 16 tracks on this fairly equally, and it works as an amazing predecessor to the soundtracks for the blind, which unfortunately does kind of overshadow this record in my experience immediately within that ritualistic, sort of just repetitive, just surreal sound with the tribal drumming. It works so well. And then there's the incredibly odd I Am the Sun, which is so, what an alienating song. Just the way, like, the opening, it just comes in and then it completely goes out, and you can tell when the audio track stops and starts again due to the background ambience. It's just such a unique sounding track, and also it is just very danceable. She Lives is super fun. I love just the guitar work on it, and also amazing lyrics. Celebrity Lifestyle and Mother Father are incredibly fun. Blood Promise is beautiful. Mind Body Light Sound, My Birdie Child, all fucking ethereal. Alcohol the Seed, ooh, just such an angry song. I love that intro. It's like some thrash metal shit. Killing for Company is obviously the highlight on here. I mean, that's the classic. Mother's Milk, not to be confused with the Boys character. That song is absolutely phenomenal. Telepathy, Where Does a Body End? It's just so fucking consistent, man. I mean, I could just talk all day about how much I love these 16 tracks. Even when they do get uglier sounding, it's just beautiful. It's just gothic, atmospheric, grand, all-encompassing, and it really is, I would say it's a great introduction for Swans sound. I love this album. Everybody should listen to it regardless of whether you're a fan of Swans. Beautiful, perfect, I love it. You should too. Okay, we've made it to the big three, the trilogy, if you will, of the 2010s post-reunion albums that are big, gigantic, 2 hours long. They're all pretty much the exact same length. All three of them are double albums, and they are all perfect, okay? They all have their own unique sound, too, which is very nice, given Leaving Meaning through Birthing's notable lack of that. This one, The Seer, I believe it's the weakest, and it's the first. It's not bad. Obviously, it's not bad. It's number 3. It's perfect. It's a 10 out of 10. But it is the weakest because, if you ask me, it has the most amount of songs, which don't do much for me. And it's just kind of my least favorite vibe of the three. This one has kind of a ritualistic, tribal, country, forested vibe. It's very natural sounding, and it's very ominous and creepy, and I think in a way that the other two are not. I'll just go through every single song. Lunacy is incredibly fun. It has the very nice, almost kind of sounds like a mandolin. I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure it's just an acoustic guitar, but it sounds like a mandolin. And I love that part at the end, whenever they're, your childhood is over. I just think that's very pretty. It's very ominous. Mother of the World immediately starts off with that very, very, almost kind of like punk-esque guitar lick that just for like the first 5 minutes. And then as soon as Duras vocals come in with the in and out section, man, you were just in for a fucking ride, dude. Then there's The Wolf, which is a pretty fun little singer-songwriter piece. Then it is still only a minute, so there isn't too much to talk about. Then there's The Seer, which is the first of our 30-minute epics. Fucking phenomenal. Everything about the song is perfect. Every section, of the suite is phenomenal. And then you immediately get put into The Seer Returns, which is so fucking funny to me. Which features Jarbo, actually. I actually did not know that Jarbo was on this album at all until fairly recently. But still, great song. Then there's the very avant-garde, sort of free improvisational piece, 93 Avenue B Blues, which is very entertaining. The Daughter Brings the Water through Avatar are 3 of the prettiest Swan songs, in my opinion, that just sound like straight, just like indie country pieces, honestly. I feel like the Magnolia Electric Company could make these, not Avatar. I love those. Song for a Warrior, Karen O's vocals are great. Avatar is my favorite song on here. I don't know why I included it in that list earlier. I apologize for that. Fuck, dude, Avatar is just so epic sounding. It sounds like you're on a fucking adventure, dude. You can just feel like you're riding on the back of a horse into battle. You know what I'm saying? Um, Absolutely amazing song. The main reason this is number 4 and not 2 or 3 is because the last two songs. Maybe a little bit controversial, but I do find A Piece of the Sky and The Apostate to be lacking in variety and interesting parts. They have great atmosphere, great production as always with Swans, but I do think that they're just not that engaging of they're just not that engaging of tracks, to be perfectly frank, in my opinion. Not that engaging, you know. This album is still perfect, in my opinion. They're great songs. I don't think either of them have a reason to be 20 minutes long, is a good way to put it. And so, yeah, that's The Seer. Everybody should listen to it. It's amazing, and we're going to move on to number 2. The Glowing Man, the final album in the trilogy, is going to come in at number 3. And basically, everything I said about The Seer applies to here, too. It's beautiful. It's very maximalist. It's just such a fucking earworm, man. It's so hypnotic. I frankly find it to be a very relaxing record. And I just love the repetition and the atmosphere, the production. I would say The Glowing Man is definitely the most atmospheric and ambient of the 3 projects. And honestly, I've always kind of gotten like a mythology vibe to it, like ancient Greek, like, you know, castles with the giant pillars, and you know what I mean. You know, I don't know if that makes any sense, but I've always just gotten a certain kind of like, just mythologic, ancient, sort of like godlike vibe from this record. And again, I can go track by track. Cloud of Forgetting, super fun, atmospheric opening. Absolutely amazing. Cloud of Unknowing, what an experience, man. It's grand, it's epic. It's just such an amazing mesh of the greatest noises ever made. Okay, The World Looks Red / The World Looks Black is a very fun track. Kind of almost has kind of like a call and response thing going on in the middle of it, which has always been very fun to me. People Like Us is a nice little sort of downtime, smaller scope song after the first 3 epics, before throwing you straight into Frankie M, which, oh my god, dude, Frankie M is probably top 5 Swans for me, maybe even top 3. That one section near like the middle, where it's like the drums slowly rise in the crescendo and then stop and then start over again, goes on for like 5-6 minutes. Absolutely life-changing, dude. That's the kind of shit I live for. It makes me stim so much. I love it. I should probably stop doing that. And then you get to the second half of the track, which is a little bit more not mainstream, but a little bit more approachable, with the really pretty guitar riff, and, you know, Michael Girard's vocals come in. It's just an amazing song, man. Then there's When Will I Return, which... wonderful vocals from... let me look at this up real quick. Wonderful vocals from Jennifer Girard. Alright, nice. You know, keeping with the family lineage. And I love that song. Very pretty. Similar way to People Like Us. It's just a nice downtime. And then you get into the Swan song, the title track. Oh my god. How do you even start with the fucking title track? The Glowing Man. Perfect atmosphere, perfect production, perfect vocal performance from Michael Girard. It's easily his best vocal performance, if you ask me. It's just perfect, man. I have nothing more to say. And then finally, after you get through this grand, epic adventure of 2 hours, feature length, you get to Finally Peace, which closes out not just this album, but the whole trilogy perfectly. I love The Glowing Man. I really have from here on out, no flaws. There is no complaints I can make. This is eight tracks that all justify their lengths. They're perfect, and they mean the world to me. With that, I'll move on to number 2. Alright, the best and easily probably the most popular Swans album, To Be Kind, is coming in at number 2. This album, man, fuck, dude. This album, I would say, is the most normal of the 3, and definitely has the most amount of influence from punk and metal and rock of the three. It's the heaviest, I would say. And just in general, just it's the most aggressive, though. Even then, it's still very atmospheric. It's kind of an awkward thing to say. Now, give me a second. I'm about to show off my drip. I have... Aha! Well, how many of you get to say you have this? Huh. I have To Be Kind on vinyl. It's beautiful, isn't it? It's a triple album. I love it. You have the little baby head, which also means that I have the poster for it right there. It's pretty freaking cool if you ask me. And let me put this back up. So, track by track. Screenshot is their most popular song, and very deservedly so. Super menacing. I love Michael Girard's vocals. It's just an amazing song, and the way it slowly builds and has that crescendo at the end, amazing. Just a Little Boy is a very ominous, surrealist kind of blues track, which makes sense, given the Ford Chester Burnett part. Love that song. A Little God in My Hands has sort of a dance punk thing going on, almost kind of akin to their debut EP, which I talked about way back when. Love that song. Then you get to Bring the Sun / Toysant Louverture. I don't know. Sorry to all my Haitians out there. Amazing song. The first half, Bring the Sun, which is definitely very traditional post-rock, crescendo, repetition, absolutely phenomenal. And then it fades into the more avant-garde second half, which I guess is sort of supposed to be like a concept about the Haitian Revolution. At least that's what I assume, given like the freedom chants and all the sound effects. But still, great atmosphere. I love that song. Then there's Some Things We Do, which is a very ominous track. With the repetitive droning acoustic guitar over just the repeating like actions that people do. I think it's a very fun track. Then you get to She Loves Us, which is super fucking fun, man. Amazing drum performances, amazing guitar performances, very just ominous and aggressive. Kirsten Supine has a very melancholic sound to it, I would say. And again, just very fun. Oxygen. Fuck, I love Oxygen. Why is there an edit version for it? It's so fucking funny. If you haven't heard the edit for Oxygen, listen to it. This album is just pure ADHD core. It's repetitive, it's angry. I love the part where Michael Girard suddenly decides he's a furry in the middle of it. I love this song. It's easily the best song here. Then there's Natalie Neal, which again, it just has a very just ominous, angry, just atmospheric repetition. The progression from beginning to end is just so perfect, man. I love this song. Then you get to the final track, the title track, which is just almost just sounds very bleak and nihilistic and just feels very hopeless. Like, this entire album definitely feels very emotionally draining on Girard's part, and the final track definitely enunciates that very well. And that final crescendo at the end, man, where all the noise just comes in and kind of serves almost as like a predecessor to the Glowing Man, which is the main album where he does the whole sound crescendo thing. But yeah, it's just 10 amazing 10 out of 10 tracks. The Glowing Man, but there's 2 more tracks, and there's a little bit more going on in the name of rhythm and melody, which is why I do think this is superior to The Glowing Man, even if just barely. I love this album. It's perfect. Listen to it. Which brings us to number 1. All of the What It Will Do. Yeah, I mean, come on. It sound checks for the blind. There's nothing else it could be. This is probably tied with Piper at the Gates of Dawn and Twin Fantasy Face to Face for my favorite album of all time. It is a double album. It's the longest album. It's 140 minutes, and it contains 26 tracks. All 26 are amazing. This is pretty easily the most avant-garde record, if you ask me. There's a lot of hauntology influences on here, a lot of just sound collages and field recordings. Has also a lot of influence from just noise music and industrial music. It's their weirdest, and definitely their most diverse. It doesn't really have an identity of itself, but that's sort of what makes it work. It is a terrifying, drab, cold, dark mess of just all of these different ideas all kind of shoved shoved together at a very dark place in Jarbo's life. And it's just so, it's a very mysterious record, and fuck, does it just work so well. Immediately with the opener, Red Velvet Corridor, it's just this dark, droning piece that just kind of gives you a great idea of what you're about to get yourself into. And it flows straight into I Was a Prisoner in Your Skull, which is sort of kind of like the test. Like, are you going to listen to this or not? With the beautiful ambient droning before it flows into that aggressive tribal drumming section. And fun fact, the recording at the end, nobody knows what that is. Jarbo found it, I think, from her dad, and he had no idea what it was. She had no idea what it was, and to this day, what the hell that guy's talking about is a complete mystery, which is a very ominous thing to think about, and definitely elevates the track a lot. And then you get into the greatest song of all time, Helpless Child. I don't even know what I can say about this. Every section of this song is perfect. It is the greatest song of all time. Alright? The lyrics are amazing. The way it tackles clearly very personal themes of child abuse. I fucking love it, man. How could you not? I love that the second half with the crescendo. It almost sounds like something out of the Twin Peaks soundtrack. I love it. I love every second of it. It's ethereal. Perfect. Alright? And from there, you have Live Through Me, which is just a very pretty folk interlude. Then you go into Yum Yap Killers, which is the first Jarbo track on here. And yet again, it's just a very fun punk track with some very kind of like Marshall industrial influences almost. Then you get to The Beautiful Days, which is a very dark, ominous track. And I love that looping sample of Jarbo when she was a child singing that over that such a terrifying just ambient drone. It creates a very alienating and raw experience. Then Volcano, which is probably the greatest Europop song ever made. Very fun, very catchy. Jarbo really knocked it out of the park with that track. Kind of sounds like Proto Grimes almost. And it just keeps going, man. Mellow Thumb, All Lined Up, Surrogate 2. It's just these dark, depressing, drab, industrial collages of sound that just work together so well. And yes, All Lined Up on this album, way better than any other version of that track, because that one shows up a lot. And there's How They Suffer. I love the sort of like the blind name drop. I don't know why, it's like, together we are the Avengers kind of thing. I don't know. And there's Animus, the second of the actual rock tracks on here. And again, it's just so melancholic and just ethereal and progressive in just its sound and its vibe. Amazing vocal performance. Such a great atmosphere on there. Then you get to the second track, the second disc, starting off with Red Velvet Wound, which sounds like Proto Caretaker, with sort of the chopped and screwed, almost like 1950s traditional pop ballad. Obviously, it's not a sample, it's Jarbo, but it sounds like that. Then you get to The Sound, which is probably like the third or fourth greatest song ever made. It's just so epic and just so grand. It really is it's so dreamy, while without... It never meanders for being such a repetitive track. And Jarrah, he just kills it with the vocals and the lyrics, man. Fuck. It sounds very Pink Floyd-y to me. I've always felt that that keyboard section where it's like the doo, 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 sounds like something off of Dark Side of the Moon. I don't know, just a comparison I've always felt. I'm not going to say that the rest of the second track is perfect. I do think some of the tracks kind of blend, but this album doesn't need to have like all unique tracks, and then that would sound like a compilation. It's more about the atmosphere and the vibe it's going for than a lot of the individual tracks, since a lot of them are kind of just avant-garde sound collage pieces that last a minute. But still, shit like Hypergirl, which sounds like a fucking early Ween song. I Love You This Much, which is easily the darkest and most disturbing track Swans ever made. Empathy is beautiful. And then there's also the very shoegazy, almost kind of like Explosions in the Sky Blood section. The Final Sacrifice near the end. The final proper main rock track, and God, dude, Michael Jarrah, he gave it his all on that track, and it really feels like a final thing. Like you made it to the end, here you go. The one thing I will say, YRP is kind of annoying and meandering at times. And I love you, Jarbo, but that song is kind of annoying. And then, in general, the last two songs, and the Final Sacrifice is the final song of the year, and then the last two songs really are just kind of just noise that just drone out, that just kind of phase out the end of the album. But that doesn't matter. It's more about the atmosphere than it is about the individual track. And even with YRP as well, that doesn't matter. Like, it fits the atmosphere, it fits its placement on the album. Honestly, in general, man, this album has such good track sequencing. They knocked it out of the park with that. Man, for an album that's really just a compilation album with just a bunch of random shit from like 20 years almost, the fact that it's so fucking good is amazing. And this album is perfect. I love every second of it. One of the greatest albums ever. It's just such a good, phenomenal showcase of just electronics, production, songwriting, lyricism, soundscapes. And it fuses all of these genres: ambient, musique concrète, drone, art rock, progressive rock, shoegaze, all together into just one of the most beautiful things ever. And I will forever be happy that this exists. Also, I might as well talk about this here. Its companion album, at least I consider it to be, Swans Are Dead, is also phenomenal. And if I was including the live albums on this list, it would definitely be up here. I really wish that Blood on Your Hands, Low Lifeform, and Feel Happiness could have somehow found a place onto this album. I would have really liked that. Though I will admit, the second disc of Swans Are Dead has that god-awful drone throughout it that really fucking takes me out of it sometimes. Also, another thing I wanted to mention. I'm not German, so I'm not going to try and pronounce that. However, the version of Helpless Child on here, this is honestly, unironically amazing, and I think that if you fuse Helpless Child with the Beautiful Days and I Love You This Much, it's better. I think it's more grand, it's more epic. And yeah, I also think that if you love Soundtracks for the Blind, I do recommend listening to this too. With all that out of the way, that is my number one. So let's do the outro. Okay, I decided to add one more section where it's at my top 5 songs. That just seems fair. Number 5 is Blind. Number 4 is Frankie M. Number 3 is The Sound. Number 2 is The Glowing Man. And number 1 is Helpless Child. I don't know, I just wanted to add that. Alright, peace out. Okay, so to the 5 people who made it this long, thank you very much. This was improvised. I just wanted to talk about Swans. 18 albums. I love this band. I love everything they do. Not a single album is bad, even if I was pretty negative for a lot of this. Sorry, I was trying my best here. I do want to talk about the live albums real quick. Live Rope is one of the best things they've ever made. The versions of the existing versions of tracks that show up on here are so good, dude. Absolutely a highlight for anybody who likes, the big Swan sound. Same with Delinquescence. This is sort of like the Glowing Man live album, sort of like its companion, and the Not in the Man Who Refused to Be Unhappy are so fucking good. I love this project. Anybody who likes the Glowing Man should listen to it. And also, if you like, early 80s Swans, I have to recommend Public Castration, Feel Good Now, Anonymous Bodies. They're all great live albums, even if at times they can be very lo-fi and piercing to listen to, but you know what? If you like 80s Swans, you should expect that. But yeah, Michael Jara is definitely absolutely amazing person. I love everything he's ever touched. There's more than just Swans. There's also Angels of Light, Circus More, The Body Lovers, World of Skin. But I have listened to them, and I don't think any of it does as good as Swans, but still, very consistent, and yeah. Hope the 5 people who made it this far like this. I sure had fun talking about my personal favorite band right now, and that's it for now.